afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Girl Get Up podcast. I am your host, Aquarian Chancellor, and this is a podcast where I share my stories, the good, the bad, the ugly, the ups and the downs. I invite my guests on. They share their stories, all in hopes that it inspires you, the listening audience, to go out and discover your infinite possibilities. Now, I have a guest today, Miss Zinzi Bianca, and she is a fellow career coach. Zinzi, could you please share with the audience who you are and what you do?
Hi, everyone. Thanks, Steve. So nice to be here. So, yes, my name is Zinzi Bianca. I'm a career coach and Vedic astrologer. I work with who are feeling burnt out in their careers, they're mid-level career professionals, and they're starting to question whether it's the right career path for them. So I help them to get clear on what that new career direction is, as well as working really holistically to rebuild your confidence, your well-being, and find that new path forward. So we draw on the insights of the stars from Vedic astrology. So it's the Indian system of astrology connected with yoga. So we have those beautiful insights as well as paired with your intuition to help you find that right path forward that you feel really excited for.
Yes, and I love that because I also have a little spin on that as well. But we have you here, so we're going to dig into how did you get into number one, career coaching, and what life experiences opened you up to come in with the approach of the astrology?
Good questions. So I found my way into career coaching. It was actually how I work with women in more around the career change space and looking at those different options was largely because of my own path and my own experience with career change. So I started my career as a civil engineer. I was working in the construction industry. I got massively burnt out doing that work. And same sort of thing, I was questioning, is this the right path for me? And it created this opening in two different ways. So I changed into massive, big change into the design space. Everyone thought I was nuts, but there was something about the burnout and feeling really overstretched in what I was doing and really quite misaligned. I was doubting myself a lot. And so I started to get a lot of really anxious thoughts coming towards the end of that first career. And that created the opening. First, I thought, maybe I'll change jobs. Maybe that'll solve the problem. I can still do the same work, different company. Let's see if that solves it. And the same problems were following me around. And
Mhm.
that's when I started to question, is there maybe there's something I can do on an inner level. So I had no idea about meditation back then. That for me, yoga was just going to one class at the gym and having a real exercise routine. And so this created this opening for much deeper kind of how do I manage my mind through this career change as well? So I don't just change careers, but I actually have practices in place that can really support me with this new direction that I'm wanting to go into. So in my early days of design, as I was still navigating that path and still coming up against some burnout and some things there when I wasn't clear on my boundaries or I wasn't feeling quite confident to say no to certain things, I also started to work with a life coach myself. And I think back then that was maybe a good 7, 8 years ago that had that first experience with her. And I found it so powerful that then opened up this path of deeper yoga explorations. And I really started to accelerate my career in a really powerful way. So I had, through calming my mind, as well as being really clear on where I was a no on different things, I then became quite sought out in the work that I was doing. I rose in my career, and it wasn't that stressful, awful feeling of, oh, there's more pressure and there's more, like, it felt so easy and enjoyable, and I was attracting the right managers, the right support. So it was through this support first with this life coach that then I discovered this yoga teacher training. And I ended up taking a few weeks off, or maybe not a few weeks, it was like 6 weeks, six
Mm-hmm.
weeks off. And in this yoga teacher training, they had Vedic astrology. So it was just a little taster, but it was enough to plant those seeds for me, early days of like, what is this? And how can I use these insights to really support me? So it planted the seeds. And then later on, when my design career was starting to feel, I'm Piscean, so I have a lot of
Okay.
evolutionary things going on. So when it came to later on, again, starting to question how is design all I want to be doing anymore? That's when that opened up some more space in my career. And I was thinking, okay, if the work isn't coming at this point in time, I had this really odd break, which was so different to any other time, that I started to wonder, why isn't it coming? Is this not what I'm meant to be doing anymore? And if I have this time now, what would I really want to spend it on? And that's when I realized, it's like, oh, it's the astrology now that I'm meant to be doing. And it was through, so I still kept working in design, and I'm quite senior in the space to do a little bit of consulting still, but it really then drew me to the astrology, as well as having this amazing experience with this
Mhm.
life coach. I then decided I really wanted to explore and take that further. So when COVID came along and we're all locked in, I was in Melbourne, which was one of the worst cities to be locked down in, had a lot of space and time. I was like, I'm going to take my astrology studies further and really train quite seriously with a teacher from India who's been practicing for over 40 years. She's amazing. And really get serious about this, as well as do my coaching training as well. So I'm now a certified coach as well, which is amazing. So COVID had some positive elements for me, which was really nice to have that time and make the most of when we were all stuck indoors. So that's a little bit about how I got into career coaching as well as astrology.
Yeah, COVID was a very important time. So I feel like if you did not take that time to really dig into creating a plan for yourself, like you're living out the results of that now. You used the word burnout
Mm.
quite a few times. Could you explain what that looked like in practice? I know many people who are listening might be in that transitional space and they may be going through some of those very things that you've experienced already. Could you share about what that looked like for you?
Yeah, absolutely. It started off, I shared recently in a podcast that, and I've started recording my own, and I realized that, yeah, when even in my early days of engineering studies, that it was hard. There was a lot of effort and a lot of thinking, that there was also a lot of pressure. So when I started and I compare this to the design work that I was doing, where it really, I'm not to say don't work hard, but if it really feels so effortful all the time, that takes a lot of energy. So for me, I also didn't realize I was quite introverted too. So in engineering, I'd get asked questions all the time. We'd start really early in the morning. And before I'd even walked in the door, sat down at my computer, 7 a.m., I'd be getting question after question after question. I also wasn't in my early points in my career, I wasn't getting invited to some of the meetings to know how to even answer those questions.
Mhm.
So over time, also the long hours. So long hours, lots of travel. So some key things that I identified within myself is real fatigue, starting to feel really anxious about work, having a lot of doubt, questioning yourself. All of these things can impact your memory as well. And it
Mhm.
then becomes a bit of a vicious cycle because you're like thinking, is there something wrong with me? I can't remember this, I can't retain this. So long hours, lots of pressure, and lots of pressure in terms of that in that type of work. There was a lot of regulations for engineers. You had to be across everything, safety as well as design outputs. And I was probably taking on more responsibility than I actually needed to. I thought every single piece of element that we were building, that's all my responsibility. And definitely part of it was, but I was taking on a lot more pressure and responsibility. So I think those pieces where you feel like something's misaligned and you might not have recognized that yet. So it shows up as, yeah, fatigue, not sleeping well. I was thinking about so much stuff in my head. And then my body was starting to tell me as well. So I was having all sorts of like digestion problems, as well as my diet wasn't great. I didn't realize that was an issue too, but
Mhm.
digestion as well as a lot of inflammation in my body. So all the stress was starting to make my shoulders seize up. I was recovering from an injury at one point, and I was walking around and this knee was just going pop, 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 and it should have been fine, but there was so much inflammation that, yeah, the body is generally such a good indicator as a starting point, if nothing else.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Why do you believe a lot of women in male-led workplaces struggle with confidence? Are you ready to take control of your personal and professional journey? If you are chasing creative goals, building your dream brand, or landing that perfect job, I've got the tools to help you succeed. Need that perfect handheld accountability planner? The accountability planner for the creative woman is your ultimate companion for staying focused and turning big dreams into actionable steps. Or are you struggling to align your brand with your business goals? Well, the How to Conduct a Brand Analysis Guide breaks it all down, giving you step by step strategies to refine your brand and grow your audience. Or last but not least, for those climbing the corporate ladder, the resume toolkit gives you everything you need to craft a standout resume and land your next big role. From day one, I've always let you know that you are the star. So shop with me and take your first steps toward your brightest future. Start your journey to success today. Now, back to the episode.
Oh, that is a big question. So it's interesting, like when you're if we go back to how we evolved as humans, it feels safe when you're amongst your tribe and your community, right? We all want to fit in to
Mhm.
generally how we've evolved, from what I understand, to survive. We want to fit in to survive. So when we're the odd one out, then that adds a few extra layers. So besides just rocking up to work and doing what you need to do, all of a sudden you're the odd one out. You have a lot more eyes and attention on you. So that can create pressure in and of itself. And you also have like unspoken biases that people are might have within themselves too. So they might, rather than assuming you're knowledgeable and assuming you're the qualified person in the room that you are, they may do the opposite. And what I mentioned as well around not getting invited to some of those meetings too, that's what I was experiencing. And so then we have all these other layers of things where we're trying to catch up. We're having to prove, or we think we are having to prove ourselves in those meetings. That takes effort and energy. We're having to try and get invited to those meetings in the first place. That's another layer of things. And then there's also not that same, or it might be more challenging to really feel like you're amongst it in the group as well, where women might naturally bond together, men might naturally bond together and go out for lunch and do those things. And there's just a little bit more of a dynamic there, whether it's real or just a belief system within our heads. Sometimes it just holds us back from connecting and debriefing with people as well. We have different things that are unique to us as women that it's helpful to be able to debrief and share those experiences. How are you managing those different things? And when you're the only one, like on one of my construction projects, I was one woman amidst 30 guys there on the site. So then that means you have to up your own support systems and your own time for connection as well.
Yeah, it's important to support one another in a lot of those middle management positions and in upper management as well. So it's important to support each other when
Mm.
we're in those roles. What are your thoughts about that?
Oh, yeah, that's such an important topic because what I was learning as well as I was starting to step more into this coaching space too is that as women, we don't always help each other, which is a
Mm-hmm.
bit
Yeah.
sad. And what I was learning about that is whether that's a scarcity mindset or you just don't see as many of your own as you're rising up the ranks. So you start to feel, this may or may not happen, but you might start to feel, oh, I really have to hold on to my position and
Mm-hmm.
defend it. Because if you're the only woman there and there's another woman who's trying to rise up the ranks as well, and then you might think, oh, no, she can't have it too. This is mine. I've worked really hard for this. There's no space for two because you're not seeing it around you. You're the only one. So it can really, we don't always help each other out in that way. So if you're like recognizing that within yourself, know that you are actually, it's really important for us to be supporting each other because it will get easier the more that we can help each other to rise up the ranks as well. Wouldn't it be nicer for you not to be the only one there, to actually have other women that understand and can represent whether it's customers, clients, the organization in being more diverse in their decision making, and then how that impacts the world as well. If it's all just masculine energy, then that's where the decision making is coming from and made from, and we can see what impact that has when we don't have that diversity at the moment.
Yeah, as a career coach for women, and you have these clients, and you're listening to them share their stories. What are some of the common challenges that you find that they face in the workplace?
Getting having a number of different experiences, proving themselves, as well as burnout is a big one too. So it's really, and that's why I like to work on a holistic level with clients, because if we don't identify the stuff that we can actually change already where we are, then we can bring those same things with us. So if you're taking on too many projects, so you don't have the work-life balance, or you might not even recognize how many projects is the right number of projects for you. So starting there, like, do you know what is a happy medium for you? Then
Mhm.
then getting clear on what it is. And then the next piece is feeling confident enough to have those conversations too, so that you can start to create those boundaries. So we work on those different things. So I work on an inner level with clients. So we work on the body and confidence piece as well, because how we feel in our bodies, if we're feeling good, if we're feeling confident, then we can actually create more work-life balance for ourselves, because we can say no. And as women, I feel like sometimes we think we're doing the right thing by saying yes. And we
Mhm.
think that's going to be the well-received thing. But
Yeah.
what I've seen really in my career is that saying no, questioning things like questioning contracts, contract terms and conditions, that actually gained me respect
Mhm.
from the guys in the workplace. That pushback, that you're not just this pushover, because as you rise up the ranks, that's what you need to be able to support the business with as well. It's like, no, you're not just saying yes to everything, allowing everything in. You're needing to have those harder conversations. So can you practice that in your own career for your own life and well-being, and really support yourself? Because when we have those boundaries and those things in place, we feel better at work, we feel better within ourselves, we're more likely to stay in the workplace and have better relationships, because we're not feeling resentful. We're not
Mhm.
angry and bitter. We're not tired and overworked. All of these things can then impact whether you actually get offered a promotion or you get that new opportunity. Like if you're bringing all of this, and that's why we have to work on this holistic level, because if you're feeling frazzled, you're angry, you're bitter, your energy is not great, and then you start applying for new work, it just doesn't translate. People don't, like, they might not recognize it on a, a conscious level, but on an unconscious level, they're like, do we want that kind of person here in our space? Are they going to uplift us all? Is whether that's happening in their minds or just a feeling sense. So we work on a number of those different things.
Yeah. That's huge. It really, really is. It is huge. I'm going to switch
Mm.
gears a little bit because it is not every day that you meet a career coach that brings in the astrology part of it. How difficult was that for you to number one, learn it with a level of proficiency that you can then integrate it into your coaching program?
Mm. Well, it's an endless field of study, to be honest. It
Mhm.
never ends because when astrology reflects us as humans, and we are eternally complex beings. So I think astrology has been misrepresented, because back in the day when Christianity came along, we shifted from this real appreciation and understanding of our relationship with our world and with our universe, and how the sun influences us, the moon influences us. We know those two, if we want to call them planets, that they influence us. That actually there's more than just those two planets, and they influence us in different ways as well. So when I first started studying astrology, I discovered one teacher and then the next, and I wanted to go deep. I did a full 3-year course with my teacher
Okay.
and went for good 9 months and exploration and understanding. It was a very practical study, and I started then using it in my own life. And now I continue with her. So we keep doing, as the years go by, we start to specialize in different topics. So at the moment, we're learning about particular groupings of
Mhm.
planets and stars and how that influences us in other ways. There's a lot of, like I mentioned about the complexity of humans, it's layering, a lot of layering of insights and information. So with clients, I really wanted to bring this in because when we're making a career change, I feel like this, particularly what happened for me and what I can see with my clients, is it creates this opening to deeper questions. We want to know, what are we really here for?
Yeah.
What is my true purpose? I tried this thing of doing the traditional path of meeting everyone else's expectations, of following like societal, again, expectations. I've done this and I'm not feeling good about it anymore. It doesn't feel quite right. I feel like I've got more to offer the world. I want to do deeper, purposeful work, and I don't want to get burnt out or feel awful doing it. I want to feel
Mhm.
good. So that's where having that astrological insight, where we can explore that and bring that together with what direction you'd like to go in. And I see myself, even when I was changing into design, the idea of an engineer, and at that time it was graphic design, people were
Mhm.
wondering, how the heck does that work in your brain? How do you bring full left brain with full right brain together and do it really well? And it is possible. It absolutely is possible. And that's where I see how I work with clients too now. We bring the really practical elements of career coaching and understanding you, going deeper into your own intuition, doing all the practical things about bringing that career to life as you've decided on a change, but also creating space for this deeper inquiry. And you get this additional information. And what happens too then is, rather as we move in that new direction, when we have this deeper self awareness, we can be a lot more confident too. Like I referenced before, I'm Piscean. I evolve, I change, I move, I'm a watery sign, I'm emotional. All of these different things, you then, rather than being hard on yourself about it, you just know that they're parts of you and you can work with them rather than resist them. So we can bring those two together so you feel a lot more confident and a lot more clear on what you want and how to get there.
Yeah, because you understand the good attributes and I don't want the more challenging attributes that come along with a
Yes.
particular sign or astrological house, which will be is my next question. What are some, if someone wanted to study this for themselves, outside of
Mhm.
hiring you, of course, what are some key houses and key placements that could help a client identify their career pathways?
So the 10th house is the house of career.
Hmm.
But that's on a very literal level. So the other aspect that you'd want to look at is also your first house, because
Hmm.
your first house is about you, and it's the reason why you've come to the earth, come to this lifetime, and that gives us a lot of indication too around what sort of flavor you will have of the 10th house. So if we take my chart, for example, I have a heavy concentration of planets there. I've got
Hmm.
my moon, I've got Venus, I've got Mercury going on there, and that real questioning and deeper things going on, as well as Mercury. And Mercury is more around the practical side of things. So what I was talking about, my left brain, right brain, you can see that. But my Mercury is retrograde And it's
Oh,
also
wow.
got an aspect of debilitation. So
Okay.
it's not, so that might sound like a lot of information going on, but what that shows is that Mercury is not as strong as it could be. So where I was doubting myself about my career, where the I could, if I studied really hard in engineering, then I could do it really well. I have that capability, but it was hard, and having a like Mercury debilitated and retrograde means it wants to do things different. And that's maybe
Mhm.
not the biggest strength that I bring. So, whereas the creative element was a lot more powerful. So, having that indication and then understanding how that influences the 10th house, you can then see what's going on as well with the 10th house. So, I don't know how deep you want me to go into this because I can share a lot of information, but you can look at as well with your 10th house is what sign is it? So
Mhm.
I'm Piscean, then the 10th house is Sagittarius. Then we can see, okay, Sagittarius is ruled by Jupiter. Have a
Mhm.
look what Jupiter is doing. That then is Jupiter. What house is Jupiter in? So you have a few pieces of information. So if I was going to say you could have a look at those three elements at a basic level, we can also look at sun, moon, all of that kind of stuff. That in terms of houses, your first house, what's going on there? Your 10th house, what sign it is. So
Mhm.
what's that essence of what it brings? And then also, what is the Lord of that 10th house doing? So having a look at those three things can give you some clues to get started.
Yeah, thank you for sharing your expertise. What tools have you personally created to help guide clients through that understanding process of what we just talked about, your 10th house and the influence that that has on your career space?
So we do an astrology reading as
Mm-hmm.
part of that. So we'll go deep into your chart itself so you can have that clear understanding. You can ask those questions. I'm also really mindful that not everyone wants to know everything going on. So I don't just share if there's some areas of life that you just like to keep a mystery. I think
Yeah.
that's really important to honor. And that was why I initially was like, oh, do I really want to know when I was first
Mhm.
thinking about finding out my chart? Um, so we use that as a tool, and then we get really practical as well. So I love to use Trello too. We dive deep into getting clear, I think is a
Mhm.
really important starting point. So we can use the astrology, we use also we do a coaching session to really support you to get clear on what those desires are. What are your goals? What are your dreams? How do we really practically bring those to life? So that's where the coaching really comes into play as well.
Yeah. I did one on myself. Now I'm not that great like you, but I was able to do one on myself, and I found that a lot of the stuff that was in my chart, I was already doing in one aspect or another. Did you find the same for you?
Yeah, it was really validating, I
Hmm.
found, because when I had my first astrology reading, which was with one of the teachers who was an astrologer at the training I was doing, it really allowed me, it really allowed me to see, oh, this spiritual exploration, this isn't just a fleeting thing.
Yeah.
So I could see that was really important for me. And I could see he really spoke to a lot of the strengths and the positive aspects, which I think is so important. Like what makes me unique, and knowing that I'm on the right path, and what things also to be aware of that I can manage, to really getting really practical and being helpful with it. So yeah, I really found it so powerful to have that insight.
Yeah. As I was listening to you, it sounded like mentorship, like you're really big on mentorship. How important is that for you and communicating that to your clients?
Yeah, mentorship is really important. So, because I mainly work in the career change space, so it's
Okay.
women who are looking to make a change rather than you're in a career and accelerating and going up the ladder. But if I was supporting women more in that space, and as they do get into the work, if they like my support, I'm obviously going to be there for them. But mentorship really important, and particularly also I just recorded a training yesterday that actually, as we're looking to career change, that it's really helpful too to be securing yourself a mentor, and not just someone that's like a career coach, amazing, but someone that is in the industry that you want to move into, that you can feel, and it's more of an organic thing rather than just jumping onto one of the mentoring platforms. I don't know. I'm not quite sure how that relationships. It might be a good starting point, but if you can be going to industry events and connecting with people in person and finding out about and unpacking and their intel, I think that's really helpful. But the other thing that I'll speak to as well is when you're doing aligned work that and having those boundaries and clear on what you want, then what I could see is you start to attract the right types of people. And when you just put up, excuse me, crappy workplaces,
You okay?
crappy workplaces that don't feel feel aligned, then you kind of, in a subtle way, saying to the universe, I'm okay with being treated that way. And the
Mm,
more that we can make those changes, say no, make adjustments, affirm what's good for us, then better people start to come into our circle. And that's where you can build more of those relationships. And even where you are right now, notice who you're surrounding yourself with. Are they
mhm.
helpful? Are they supportive? Are they your types of people, or are you just putting up with them? Because maybe there's someone in a different team who'd be really amazing to connect with, but you're spending all your time hanging out with the wrong people.
Just to go back to what you said about women in the workplace and pulling each other up, it's because you never know. You might have a position open, and that woman from the other team that it's only you two
Uh-huh.
or me, and you can reach out to that person and like, oh, hey, this is coming up. You never know who can change your life and change, and with that change your life comes change of circumstance.
And we can think of, sometimes we might think when we say the word mentor, that it's this big thing to try and find this elusive golden mentor, but actually it's just building relationships with people.
Yes,
And
thank
and and how good is that to have few more people in your corner that you know what's, like you were saying, see, like you get to find out about other parts of the business, what's going on, opportunities, you get a fresh perspective, or it might be someone at a different company, again, different, same, but different. And so many benefits from having those different connections.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. My final question to you is, where do you see the career coaching space in the career coaching industry within the next 5 years? And how do you think you can contribute to that futuristic view of career coaching?
Sorry, I missed that bit.
No, I said I think you're there already because get this approach when you're talking about career coaching. I thought it when I saw it, I was like, oh, this is awesome, because nobody really talks about how to view it in a way as using who you already are, the things that you cannot change about yourself, the things that you have to accept about yourself, and use that to your best ability. So I think you're already there. But in your personal opinion, where do you see the coaching space, the career coaching space within the next 5 years?
Yeah. I see that too. I love these spaces where we as women can bring more of the womanly way of working, like the
Mhm.
intuitive, the spiritual, the care factor, creativity. That's what I'd like to see. And hopefully that is a space, and how the coaching space has grown to shows there's real desire for that, and not discounting how effective it is when we work that way. I think we've been somewhat conditioned with so much masculine energy to go, you do this one thing and the next thing and the next thing, and you're done. Like it doesn't, when I've worked with coaches that way, it hasn't nearly been as effective as when you really go, what's your intuition saying? How can we go deeper with that? Make you feel really good, and then move forward in a practical way as well. So that's how I'd like to see more of the career coaching space. We're not just working on your LinkedIn, your resume, your application letters. There's so much more below the surface going on that influences how effective that is. And we can waste so much time when we haven't done our own inner work, looking at our well-being, our energy, recovery, all these sorts of things. If we think that the answer is just going and applying, like I saw when I thought, okay, that's the answer, I'll just try a different workplace, the exact same thing happened in just a slightly different form. I was so mind boggled because
Mhm.
my desire had been to have more work-life balance. So I'd
Yeah.
consciously applied for a place that was 5 days a week. And 2 months in, they were saying it's an expectation to work 6 days a week. So when we're not clear, when we haven't done that inner work, then we can just recreate the same. So as the career coaching space is maturing, I would say we're recognizing more of those things that are really important to work on and work with our clients. I remember one trip where I was in Bali. I met a lady who she'd gone blind in one of her eyes. So
Mm.
she'd gone up the corporate ladder, higher and higher and higher. And I don't, from what she described, it wasn't just the pressure, but it was just the misalignment, having to put herself forward as really masculine, as not caring, as really intense kind of person, that when you start to stray so far away from yourself, that it can really, like, that's the body in recovered. But it's yeah, it takes its toll. So it's up to
But
you what you want to be, what actually is most important for you. And that's where having someone to work with that can help you to go there, rather than waiting for a crisis.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, we don't want that, because that's the burnout, and it is real. It is real. Thank you, Zinzi, for sharing some time with me today. Could you please share with the audience where they can find more of your coaching program and any of your career resources to help them get a better understanding of who they are?
So absolutely. So You can head on over to Instagram at Zinzi Bianca or my LinkedIn. Come connect with me, build your network on LinkedIn. Same again at Zinzi Bianca, or head on over to zinzibianca.com. So that's ZinziBianca.com.
Do you have any initiatives coming up?
So I'm actually just in the process of launching my podcast myself. So that's going to be coming through on Spotify. It's called She's
Okay.
Luminous. So probably by the time this podcast is live, it will be out there. So come and find me at She's Luminous on Spotify, and we'll be having lots of chats about careers and astrology and connecting in with your feminine intuition as well. So I've launched a brand new program. It's a 1 month coaching program where we'll do your deep dive into your astrological chart, as well as deep dive into your intuition, connecting with your purpose and getting really clear on that new direction that you want to go in. So if you're interested in finding out about that program, I've got a free connection call, and you can head on over to my website or go to zinzibianca.com/clarity.
Awesome. We're going to include all of that in the show notes, and we're going to make sure that we got your Spotify links to your podcast. So I am here to support you. So when this episode airs, you guys will know exactly where to find her. With that, everyone, we will see you next episode. You hang on. I'm going to send you off the right way. Everyone else, take care.
And big thank you, C. It's been so wonderful to chat with you.
Yes, I'm so glad. Look, she's coming from Australia, guys. So if y'all was hearing a little bit of glitching, the airways was able to support us enough to get the word out. So thank you. Take care. We'll see you next episode. Bye bye.